Dr. Kennedy-Graham.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to, in this second reading, pick up on the concern expressed by Grant Robertson about the lack of the due democratic process in this passage of this bill, particularly as it relates, as Moana Maki has said, to something as important as the Part 2 of the bill, the proposal to eliminate the arbitrage against post-89 foresters. And given that the public of New Zealand are not going to have any possible input into the passage of this legislation, let us speak on their behalf as faithfully as we can, and rather than presume to input their views, let us ask some questions that simply hang in the air because of the import of this draft legislation. And the questions have to be asked. I think there would be 5 questions the people of New Zealand would wish to have answered, and given that neither the Prime Minister nor the Minister of Finance is here, but the Minister of Environment, Amy Adams, is here, let us ask Minister Adams to address these questions in committee, or her colleague who happens to wander into the House and sit down in the chair. Let us see what the answers are to these 5 questions. The first question is this, to Minister Honourable Amy Adams. Do you think that climate change is just another economic problem, or is it a qualitatively new, unprecedented threat to human society? If it is just another problem, where can we find it in your 4 budget priorities, which are responsibly managing finance, building a productive and competitive economy? It cannot be delivering better public services or rebuilding Christchurch, so it has to be one of the first 2. Do we find climate change in the responsible financial management of the New Zealand's economy, or do we find it in a better, productive, competitive economy? Because actually 195 states parties to the UN Convention on Framework Convention on Climate Change, competing among themselves and punching above their weight, will fail, Minister, to solve the global problem. If it is the other, if it is an unprecedented threat to human society, which 99% of humanity think it is, why are you and your government not calling attention to this and calling for a national debate in the forthcoming election? That's question 1. Question 2, the United Nations has concluded that to prevent dangerous climate change, the developed countries must reduce emissions by 2020 off 1990 within the range of 25 to 40%. If we continue to look down, we can pretend the questions are not here, possibly. That 25 to 40% is designed to meet a threshold of 2 degrees temperature rise, or 450 parts per million volume carbon atmospheric concentration. That 450 million was actually signed off by your government in, I think it was August 2009. Given that there is a range of 25 to 40%, how can you justify any of the developed countries, including New Zealand, from being outside that range, below the 25%? Can you explain the Treasury Cabinet paper that says it does not follow that every country has to be within this range, when the scientists make it clear that they have taken into account all the common but differentiated responsibilities, all the difference in national circumstances when they give a range of 25 to 40%. And if, in fact, you insist on being below 25%, which you do with your 5% unconditional target, Minister, will you wish to nominate another developed country to make up the shortfall, and will you or your Prime Minister address that issue to that developed country, explain the reasons, apologise for New Zealand, and then nominate the country and help them perhaps make up the shortfall? Question 3. Are you confident that New Zealand is doing its fair share when we set a 5% reduction? Are you aware, Minister, that global emissions at the moment are projected to produce anything between 2.6 degrees and 4 degrees Celsius increase? And are you equally aware, Minister, that New Zealand's projected increases go above that 2.6 to 4 degrees Celsius increase and is more on track, if emulated by every other country, closer to 5 to 6 degrees Celsius temperature increase, which in the case of the World Bank is described as not dangerous climate change for your children and mine, but catastrophic. Question 4. Are you able to name, or perhaps your colleague, the Finance Minister, identify the global least cost of carbon as of mid-May 2014? And is it sufficient to avert dangerous climate change of a 2-degree threshold? And finally, question 5, which has been asked repeatedly in this House today, and no doubt you or your colleagues will have a chance to answer it in the committee. Why is this government discriminating against post-89 foresters in eliminating the arbitrage, which in itself is a good thing, but iniquitous in relative terms of equity compared with the other sectors that you and your government are deliberately and somewhat cynically protecting? 5 questions, Minister. We're waiting for those answers.
Simon O'Connor.